The great starship Aurora was preparing for takeoff. It was a busy day at the spaceport. People from all over the galaxy were boarding the ship. Some were travelers, some were workers, and some were soldiers returning home. Among them was a young man named David. He was dressed in a sharp suit. David worked in business and often traveled on important flights. He liked to sit in first class because it was comfortable and quiet. At the same time, a soldier named Sergeant Amina stepped onto the ship. Amina was a strong woman with a calm face. Her uniform was neat, and her badge shined under the lights. She had just finished an important mission on a distant planet. She was tired but proud. Her mission had helped bring peace to a troubled area far from Earth. As Amina walked toward the seating area, she looked for her assigned seat in first class. She held her boarding pass tightly. She found her seat, but before she could sit down, a man stood up and blocked her way. The man was David. David looked at Amina with surprise and doubt. He said, "You cannot sit here. This is the first-class section. It is only for people like me." His voice was firm and a little cold. He did not know Amina, and he did not understand why she was here. Amina looked at David calmly. She said, "I have a seat here. My boarding pass says first class." She tried to move past him, but David stepped forward again. David raised his hand and said, "No, you must go to economy class. This is not your place." He spoke loudly, and some passengers turned to watch the scene. The tension in the air grew. Other passengers felt uncomfortable. Some whispered to each other. They did not say anything but looked at David with surprise. A few eyes were on Amina, too. She did not show anger or fear. She stood quietly, holding her head high. David did not wait for a reply. He sat down in his seat, still watching Amina. She took a deep breath and slowly turned to find her assigned seat in economy class. The ship's soft humming grew louder as the engines prepared to lift off. Inside the ship, the artificial intelligence system watched everything. It recorded all the events carefully. The AI's voice was calm and polite when it spoke over the loudspeakers. "Passengers, please take your seats. We will begin the journey shortly." David kept looking at Amina from across the aisle. He still did not understand why she had the right to sit in first class. He thought about how he had always seen soldiers in a different place. In his mind, first class was for people like him. Business people, wealthy travelers, or important guests. Soldiers were strong and brave, but not part of his world. Amina sat quietly in economy class. She was tired after months away from home. She thought about her mission. It had been difficult and dangerous. She had helped many people and saved lives. Her work was important, even if others did not always see it that way. The other passengers in economy class noticed Amina's quiet strength. A few smiled at her. Some whispered words of respect. They knew she was special. She was not just a soldier. She was a hero to many. The ship moved slowly away from the spaceport. Stars began to shine outside the windows. The journey to their destination would take many hours. Passengers settled in with their devices and books, trying to forget the small argument before takeoff. David looked at the note he had written earlier on his tablet. He was still thinking about the strange feeling that came when he saw Amina standing so calm and proud. He wondered what kind of person she really was. Amina closed her eyes for a moment. She did not want to start trouble. She wanted peace and respect for everyone, no matter where they sat on the ship. She remembered the faces of her friends and teammates from the mission. They had fought hard to make a better future. As the ship reached high speed and entered the stars, the lights in the cabin dimmed. A soft calm filled the air. The passengers began to relax. But inside David's mind, questions started to grow. Who was this woman who could stand so strong against him? What story did she carry? And why did she deserve to be here in first class as much as he did? The flight had just begun, but the real journey, the journey of respect and understanding, was about to start. The Aurora sailed smoothly through space. The stars outside the windows moved like tiny lights on a dark stage. Inside the ship, most passengers were settling in for the long journey. Some were talking quietly. Others watched the passing stars with wonder. But inside, a quiet tension still remained between David and Sergeant Amina. David sat back in his first-class seat, feeling uneasy. He tried to ignore Amina's presence, but could not stop thinking about her. Why was she so calm, when he had been so firm? He remembered her quiet eyes and the way she held herself with strength. He wondered if he had judged her too quickly. Still, pride held him back from saying sorry. Across the cabin, Amina sat with quiet dignity. She did not want to make the situation worse. Her mission was done. She wanted only peace, now. Around her, other passengers watched her with respect. Some nodded silently as she passed by. A few even smiled. One young woman sitting near Amina leaned forward and whispered, "You are very brave." Amina smiled gently. "Thank you," she said softly. "I only did what was needed." David's mind wandered back to the moment. He refused to let Amina sit in first class. He thought about how easy it was to judge someone by how they looked. He realized he knew nothing about the hard work she had done or the dangers she faced. But he was too proud to admit this now. The ship's AI made a gentle announcement. "Please ensure your safety belts are fastened. We are entering a period of light turbulence." Passengers shifted in their seats as the ship shook slightly. Amina did not move. She was used to rough journeys. Her training made her strong. As the ship settled again, David opened a small tablet device. He began to search for information about Sergeant Amina. He found reports about her mission. She had led peace talks on a distant planet. She had saved many lives during a dangerous conflict. The more he read, the more surprised he became. David's eyes grew wide as he learned of the courage Amina showed. She was not just a soldier, she was a leader and a peacemaker. David felt a new feeling inside him, respect. But he still struggled with his pride. How could he tell Amina he was sorry? Would she even listen? Meanwhile, Amina looked out the window. She thought about the people waiting for her back home. Her family, her friends, and the many people who hoped for peace. She was tired but hopeful. Suddenly, the calm in the cabin was broken by a small child crying nearby. The child's mother tried to calm him, but he was scared of the space journey. Amina stood up slowly and walked toward them. She smiled kindly and spoke softly to the child. "It's okay. You are safe here." The child stopped crying and looked at Amina with wide eyes. The mother thanked her quietly. Amina returned to her seat, feeling the small warmth of kindness. David watched this quietly. He saw how Amina cared for others, even strangers. She was a person who did not only fight battles with weapons, but with heart and kindness. The passengers in economy class started to notice this side of Amina. A few began to talk softly about her mission. They shared stories of soldiers who worked for peace and protection. The atmosphere slowly began to change from tension to quiet admiration. David could no longer ignore the truth. Amina deserved respect and honor. He wished he had understood this sooner. Still, he waited. He was not ready to speak to her yet. Instead, he thought about what he would say. He wanted to apologize. But more than that, he wanted to learn. The ship's AI made another announcement. "In 1 hour, we will enter a zone of cosmic storms. Passengers are advised to remain seated and fasten their safety belts." The warning made the cabin quiet again. Passengers prepared for the storm ahead. Amina tightened her belt and closed her eyes for a moment. She thought about the dangers she had faced before. This storm was small compared to those. David looked around at the faces of the passengers. He wondered how many people had stories like Amina's. stories of courage and hope that others did not see. As the Aurora moved deeper into space, David reached for his tablet again. This time he began writing a note. It was not a note of anger or pride. It was a note of respect. He wrote carefully, choosing his words with thought. He wanted Amina to know that he was sorry for what he said. He wanted to thank her for her service and her courage. But he was not sure if he would give the note to her. David put the tablet away and looked out the window. The stars shone bright and steady. The journey was far from over. Amina felt a quiet strength inside her. She knew this flight was more than a trip home. It was a chance for people to change, to understand, and to grow. The storm outside the ship began to grow stronger. The lights flickered briefly. Passengers held tight to their seats. In the moment of silence and movement, two people, David and Amina, were about to begin a journey not only through space, but through understanding and respect. The Aurora was now flying through the heart of the cosmic storm. Outside the windows, bright flashes of light lit up the dark space like fireworks. Inside the ship, the passengers held tight to their seats as the ship shook and swayed. The soft hum of the engines was joined by occasional warning sounds. Despite the turbulence, Amina remained calm and steady. Her years of training had prepared her for much worse. David, still sitting in first class, felt the storm's power. He gripped the armrests tightly, his heart racing. He looked over to the economy section where Amina sat. She was calm, her face peaceful even as the ship moved wildly. Seeing her calmness made David think about her strength again. He realized how much he had misunderstood her before. As the storm passed, the captain's voice came over the loudspeaker. "The worst is behind us. Thank you for your patience." Passengers began to relax. The lights in the cabin returned to normal. David looked at his tablet once more. He had written a note to Amina earlier, but was not sure if he should give it to her. Now, after seeing her strength and calm during the storm, he felt the need to reach out. He took a deep breath and typed the message carefully. The note was short but full of respect. He apologized for his earlier words and thanked her for her bravery. He also said that he hoped to learn from her example. David was nervous. He did not know how Amina would react. Would she accept his apology? Would she believe he meant it? He decided to give her the note quietly and let her decide. When the cabin lights dimmed for rest time, David stood up and walked carefully to the economy section. Passengers were settling in or closing their eyes. He found Amina sitting alone, looking out the window at the stars. David approached slowly. "Sergeant Amina," he said softly, "I want to give you this." He handed her the tablet with the note. Amina looked up, surprised but calm. She took the device and read the message carefully. Her eyes softened. She saw the sincerity in David's words. "Thank you," she said simply. "It takes courage to admit a mistake." David nodded, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. "I was wrong to judge you. I did not know your story." Amina smiled gently. "Many people do not understand soldiers like me, but it is never too late to learn." The two shared a moment of quiet respect. Around them, a few passengers noticed and smiled. The atmosphere in the cabin was changing slowly. David and Amina began to talk. He asked about her mission and what she had seen. She shared stories of hope and peace, of people working together across many worlds. David listened with growing admiration. Meanwhile, some passengers nearby started to ask questions. They wanted to know more about Amina's work. She spoke with patience and kindness, explaining the importance of peacekeeping and courage. The ship's AI quietly recorded this moment. It noted the change in atmosphere from tension to understanding. The small act of kindness and apology had made a big difference. As the night passed, David and Amina continued their conversation. They found common ground despite their different lives. Both wanted a better future for everyone. Amina shared how important respect and courage were in her work. She said that true strength came from kindness, not power. David realized this was something he needed to learn. The other passengers began to join the conversation quietly. They asked questions and shared their own stories. The ship felt more like a community now. David thought about how small actions could change people's hearts. He wished he had been braver before. Now, he wanted to be part of something better. Amina looked out the window again. The stars shone bright and clear. The journey was far from over, but the first steps had been taken. As the aurora moved steadily through space, a new story was being written. A story of respect, understanding, and hope. As the aurora sailed quietly through space, Amina sat back in her seat. Her eyes were calm, but her mind traveled far away to the distant planet where her last mission had taken place. She remembered every detail clearly. The story of her courage was not just for her, but for all who needed peace. The planet was called Viridia. It was a world full of life, but torn by conflict. Different groups fought over land and resources. The fighting had lasted for years. Many people were afraid to leave their homes. Cities were damaged, and hope was fading. Amina had been sent as part of a peacekeeping team. Their job was to help the people stop fighting and start working together. It was not easy. The soldiers faced danger every day. They walked through broken streets and visited villages filled with fear. Amina's team worked hard to build trust. One day, Amina led a group to a small village on the edge of a forest. The village was empty and quiet. Amina felt a deep sadness. The people had fled because of the fighting. She knew that if peace did not come soon, the village might be lost forever. Suddenly, they heard voices. A group of children appeared from behind the trees. Their faces were dirty and eyes wide with fear. Amina kneeled down and smiled gently. "It is safe now," she said softly. "We are here to help." The children looked at her carefully but slowly began to relax. Amina gave them water and food from her pack. The children's smiles returned. The soldiers helped rebuild small homes and cleared debris. It was slow work, but the village began to feel alive again. Later, Amina met the village leader, an old man named Cato. He was wise and tired. Cato spoke of his people's pain and the hope for peace. Amina promised to do everything she could to help. The next challenge came when a group of armed fighters surrounded the village. They did not trust the soldiers. Amina stepped forward to speak. Her voice was strong but kind. "We want peace for all. We do not want to fight you. Help us make a better future." The fighters listened. Amina's courage and honesty touched their hearts. Slowly, they lowered their weapons. The soldiers and fighters began talks. It was the first step toward ending the war. During those difficult days, Amina also saved lives. Once, when a building collapsed after a fight, she pulled children and adults from the rubble. Her quick actions stopped many from dying. The villagers called her a hero, but Amina said she was just doing her duty. After months of work, the fighting stopped. The people of Viridia began to rebuild their homes and lives. Amina's team stayed to support them, teaching how to keep peace. Back on the Aurora, Amina's thoughts were filled with these memories. She knew that her mission had changed many lives, including her own. She was proud but never boastful. David, listening quietly nearby, felt a new respect growing. He had never imagined the strength and kindness needed to bring peace in such hard places. He realized that Amina was more than a soldier. She was a leader of hope. The other passengers also felt the power of her story. Some whispered to each other about courage and peace. The ship felt warmer, more connected. David spoke softly to Amina. "Your mission was amazing. You changed the world." Amina smiled. "We all can change the world if we try." David nodded. He wanted to learn how to be brave like her. The Aurora moved steadily toward its destination. Outside, the stars shone like silent witnesses to the stories unfolding inside. The flight was more than a trip through space. It was a journey of understanding, respect, and new beginnings. The starship Aurora glided silently through space. The bright stars outside looked like tiny diamonds on black velvet. Inside the ship, the mood was changing slowly. The quiet tension from before was fading. Something new was growing between the passengers and the two people at the center of it all, David and Sergeant Amina. David sat in his first-class seat thinking deeply. The stories Amina had shared with him stayed in his mind. He could not forget the courage she had shown on Viridia, the way she had saved lives and brought peace. He felt ashamed of his first thoughts and proud to know her now. David realized that his pride had made him blind. He had judged Amina by her clothes and her place on the ship, not by who she truly was. He thought about how many others might do the same. This made him want to change. He wanted to be better, kinder, more understanding. The other passengers were also watching David. Some had seen the note he gave Amina. They saw how he had apologized and begun to learn. Quietly, many began to respect him for his courage to change. Amina noticed the change in David, but did not speak of it. She was focused on the passengers around her. Many were now asking her questions about her work and her world. She answered, with patience and kindness. Near her seat, a young man spoke softly. "Sergeant Amina, how do you stay so calm and strong during danger?" Amina looked at him and smiled gently. "I remember why I do this work. I think about the people who need help. When you care for others, you find strength inside." The young man nodded, inspired. Others listened closely, and a small group formed. Amina spoke about hope, peace, and the power of courage. David watched from a distance. He was amazed at how Amina brought people together. He thought about how different their lives were, yet how much they could learn from each other. The ship's AI made a soft announcement. "Passengers, a special message from the captain. Sergeant Amina will be honored for her service and bravery upon arrival. We thank her for her courage and dedication." The cabin filled with quiet applause. Some passengers stood to clap, others smiled warmly. The moment was not just about Amina. It was about respect and the hope for a better future. David stood and walked toward Amina. "Sergeant, may I speak with you?" he asked. She nodded and moved to a quiet corner. David took a deep breath and said, "I want to thank you again. You have opened my eyes. I want to help change the way people think." Amina's eyes shone with kindness. "It is never too late to learn and grow. We all can make a difference." David smiled. "Will you help me? I want to understand more about your work and how I can support peace." Amina agreed. They spoke quietly about their hopes for the future. David felt his heart, open to new ideas and new dreams. Around them, the passengers listened and learned. The ship no longer felt like a place of strangers. It was a place of friends, hope, and new beginnings. As the Aurora neared its destination, the stars outside shone brighter. Inside, the journey of respect and courage continued. David and Amina's story was not just about one flight. It was about the power of kindness and the strength of the human spirit. The flight had changed many lives, and for those on board, a new story was just beginning. The Aurora moved closer to its destination. The stars outside the windows seemed to shine brighter, as if welcoming the ship home. Inside, the atmosphere was filled with hope and quiet excitement. The passengers were no longer strangers, but a community sharing a special moment. David knew that the time had come. He could no longer hold back the feelings inside him. He wanted to say something important, something that could heal the past and bring respect to Sergeant Amina and to all who served with courage. The captain's voice came over the loudspeaker. "Ladies and gentlemen, we will soon arrive at our destination. Before landing, we have a special announcement." David stood up slowly. His heart beat fast, but his mind was clear. He walked toward the main cabin where many passengers had gathered. Everyone turned to look as David stepped forward. Taking a deep breath, David spoke loudly and clearly. "I want to say something to all of you. When we first boarded this ship, I judged Sergeant Amina unfairly. I did not understand her courage or her mission. I spoke to her without respect. For that, I am truly sorry." The cabin was quiet. Passengers watched David closely. He continued. "Sergeant Amina is a hero. She has helped bring peace to worlds far from here. Her strength and kindness are lessons for us all. I ask you to join me in respecting her and all who serve with honor." Amina stood nearby, surprised and touched by David's words. She smiled softly and nodded in thanks. The passengers began to clap, slowly at first, then louder. The applause filled the cabin with warmth. The captain then stepped forward. "We honor Sergeant Amina for her bravery and dedication. Her service reminds us all of the power of courage and peace." Amina bowed her head humbly. She spoke to the passengers. "Thank you all. I do not seek praise, only understanding and kindness. We all can work together for a better future." David returned to his seat feeling lighter and proud. The apology was not just words, but a step toward change. He had shown courage by admitting his mistake. Passengers approached Amina and David, sharing kind words and gratitude. A small boy gave Amina a drawing he had made. A woman thanked David for his honesty. The ship's AI sent a message to all passengers. "Respect and understanding make us stronger. Let us carry these lessons forward." As the Aurora descended toward its landing platform, the passengers felt ready for what lay ahead. They were connected by a story of growth, courage, and hope. David looked at Amina and said quietly, "Thank you for your forgiveness. I hope to continue learning from you." Amina smiled. "We all grow through kindness. Together, we can make a difference." Outside, the city lights of their destination glowed, bright. The flight was ending, but the journey of respect and friendship was just beginning. The Aurora slowly touched down on the landing platform. Outside the windows, the city lights sparkled like a sea of stars. Passengers began to gather their things. The long journey was coming to an end. But for David and Sergeant Amina, this was the start of something new. David and Amina stood side by side near the exit. The moments they had shared during the flight had changed them both. David looked at Amina with respect and admiration. She had shown him courage, kindness, and strength. He felt grateful to know her. Amina smiled warmly. "Thank you for standing with me, David. Your words made a difference." David nodded. "And thank you for teaching me. I want to be better. I want to help others see the world with open hearts." Together they stepped off the ship. A crowd of people waited to welcome Amina back. Many were her friends and family. They cheered and held signs of thanks for her service. David watched, feeling moved by the respect shown to the soldier he had once judged. Amina's younger brother, a bright-eyed boy, ran to her and hugged her tightly. "You're my hero," he said simply. Amina laughed softly. "You are my strength." David saw how much Amina's work meant to her family and community. He understood that courage was more than battles. It was about love, hope, and sacrifice. As the crowd slowly dispersed, David and Amina walked toward a quiet park nearby. The city was full of life and energy. People from many worlds lived together, sharing cultures and dreams. They found a bench under a tree with soft green leaves. David sat down and looked at Amina. "What's next for you?" he asked. Amina thought for a moment. "I want to continue working for peace. There is much to do. Many people need help and understanding. I hope to teach others what I have learned." David smiled. "I want to help too. Maybe together we can make a difference." Amina nodded. "Yes, change begins with small steps and open hearts." They talked for hours about the future, about hope and courage, about respect and kindness. The city buzzed around them, but in that moment, the world felt quiet and full of promise. David realized that his journey was not only about understanding Amina, but about changing himself. He wanted to be a better person, one who saw others with respect and who acted with kindness. Amina shared stories of her travels and the people she met. David listened with growing wonder. He knew that there was much to learn beyond his own small world. Together, they made plans to speak to others, to share the lessons of courage and peace. They wanted to build bridges between people who thought they were different. As the sun set, the sky painted with soft orange and pink colors, David and Amina stood up. They looked out over the city, full of light and life. "We have a long way to go," said David, "but I believe we can walk it together." Amina smiled brightly. "Together, we are stronger." The stars began to shine in the evening sky. A new day was coming, a day filled with hope, respect, and new beginnings. Their story was not just theirs alone. It belonged to everyone who believed in courage, kindness, and the power to change. The journey of the Aurora had ended, but the journey of respect and friendship had only just begun.